Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It started on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday where nothing feels off until it suddenly does. I was cooking dinner. She was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, face blank like she was rehearsing something. The silence between us felt heavy, like the air had thickened. Then she said it. I think I need a break. 7 days. That was the number she picked. A week apart, she said. Just to clear my head. Not forever. Not divorce. Just a pause. A reset. Her voice sounded logical, calm, even mature, like she'd practiced the speech in her head a dozen times. Like this wasn't the first time she'd considered a world where I wasn't right next to her. I didn't argue. I didn't panic. I nodded once, then turned off the stove and walked away from the half-cooked pasta like none of it mattered anymore. She was expecting a reaction. Anger. Desperation. Something loud. Something that would validate the narrative she had already prepared. That I was the problem. That I clung too tightly. That space would fix what she refused to name. But I gave her nothing. No questions. No deal-making. No attempts to understand the version of her that thought cleansing our marriage like some juice diet was going to heal the damage she'd been quietly inflicting for months. She moved out that night. Packed a small bag. Took her car keys. Kissed me on the cheek like we were roommates parting ways before a business trip. I watched her walk out the door without turning around. She didn't look back. But I didn't disappear. I watched. I listened. And I prepared. Because this wasn't a break. This was an audition for her life without me. And she had no idea that I was about to stop showing up for the role she'd taken for granted. The first night alone, I didn't sleep much. Not because I missed her, but because the silence was sharp. Honest. I could finally hear my own thoughts without her noise. And what I heard was clarity. I remembered who I was before she started redrawing the borders of our relationship to fit her comfort. I remembered what peace used to sound like. By morning, I had deleted every photo of us from my phone. Not out of spite, just alignment. She wanted space. I gave her the algorithmic version of solitude too. Her side of the bed stayed cold. Her toothbrush disappeared from the sink. And I started counting the days not as a countdown to her return, but as a reminder of what happens when you ask for space and forget that space doesn't freeze, it evolves. She thought she'd come back to the same man, but she didn't know I was already moving forward. One step at a time. By the second day, I was a different man. Not in the ways she could see, in the ways she never bothered to look for. I cleaned the house, rearranged the living room, took down the framed photos of us and slid them into a box. Not out of bitterness, but necessity. The image of us had become too loud on the walls. I needed silence inside and out. I went through drawers she never touched. Cleared out her clutter from the office we both pretended I didn't use. Turned it into something mine. Books, a lamp, my old record player. No trace of her mess. Just me and my space. I didn't post about it. Didn't call friends to vent. My revenge wasn't public. It was precision. She texted that morning. Hope your day's going okay. I let it sit unread. Because she didn't want to talk. She wanted to check if the leash was still on. It wasn't. That afternoon, I canceled our streaming subscriptions. The ones she binge-watched while pretending we were still close. I returned her package she had ordered to my address. When the delivery driver asked why, I said, no one by that name lives here anymore. He nodded. It was a small act. But it mattered. By evening, I was cooking again. For one. Steak. Roasted vegetables, a glass of wine. I ate in silence with music playing low in the background. It felt unfamiliar at first, then grounding. She called that night. I didn't pick up, didn't even watch it ring. Just saw the notification after it stopped. Voicemail, 15 seconds. Her voice was upbeat, polite, the kind of tone someone uses when they're trying to prove they're not falling apart. She said, just checking in. Everything okay? I didn't respond. Because everything was better than okay. It was evolving. Later that night, I got a message from her best friend, Allie. We hadn't spoken in months. She asked if Megan was doing all right, and said she seems off lately. That was the first crack. The first indication that whatever version of freedom Megan had sold herself wasn't holding up under pressure. I didn't reply to Allie either. Let them talk. Let the silence do what words never could. The next morning, day 3, it rained hard. The kind of rain that isolates everything. I brewed coffee and opened the window. Let the cold air pour in. Let it sting a little. Around noon, She came back. No text. No warning. Just a knock at the door. When I opened it, she was standing there in leggings and a hoodie. No makeup. Hair wet. Eyes puffy like she hadn't slept or had been crying. I stepped aside. She didn't move. Then she said it. Quiet. Fractured. I don't think I want the full 7 days. But I did. She thought space would clear her head. What it cleared was the illusion. She stood on the porch, waiting. Expecting what? That I'd pull her in? That I'd say something soft, something safe? But I didn't move. I didn't even gesture for her to come inside. She was the one who asked for 7 days. I was just honoring it. Her eyes flicked behind me, scanning the room like she was trying to spot something familiar. But she couldn't, because everything had shifted. The couch had moved. The photos were gone. The light was colder. Less lived in. Less hers. She finally spoke again. Her voice shaky. I've just been overwhelmed. I nodded once. Not in sympathy. In confirmation. She was overwhelmed, but not by work or stress or life. She was overwhelmed by the realization that life without me wasn't light and liberating. It was hollow. I didn't invite her in. I let her stand in the storm she'd created. She asked if we could just talk. Her hands were trembling now. Whether from cold or regret, I didn't care to ask. I told her now wasn't a good time. She froze. Like she didn't understand the rules had changed. Like she thought she could hit pause and come back to the same screen. But that screen had gone dark. She left after a minute. Said she understood. But her voice cracked on the second syllable. She walked away slower than she had when she left 2 nights ago. This time, she looked back. I didn't wave. That night, I took the trash out. Inside were 2 old hoodies she'd left behind. Some makeup from the bathroom drawer. A pair of slippers she used to wear when pretending to still be present. I didn't throw them out to make a point. I threw them out because they no longer belonged. The next morning, she didn't text. But Allie did. Her message was shorter this time. What happened between you two? I didn't answer. Let her find out the way Megan did, through silence. By day 4, I started sleeping better. Deep, uninterrupted sleep. No tension beside me. No small sighs designed to provoke attention. No scrolling sounds at 1 a.m. No passive-aggressive tossing. Just peace. I woke up, made breakfast, sat at the table in complete quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something important. She didn't miss me. She missed what I absorbed. Her chaos. Her uncertainty. Her boredom. Her need to be admired, even when she gave nothing in return. And when I stopped absorbing it, when I became a mirror instead of a sponge, she panicked. That's why she came back early. Not because she missed me. Because she couldn't recognize herself without the reflection I used to give her. But that reflection was gone now. And all she had left was her own shadow. Day 4 turned to 5. No calls. No visits. But I knew she was watching. The read receipts on old texts suddenly reappeared. My Spotify activity, silent for days, saw her pop back into shared playlists. She was ghosting around the edges of a life she thought she could temporarily leave. But I wasn't where she left me. I was somewhere she didn't have access to anymore. Around noon, I went to the gym, first time in months. Not to prove anything. Not for revenge. Just because I finally had the mental bandwidth. I wasn't managing emotional damage control for someone who wanted me quiet until she needed me loud. I came home lighter. That evening, her mother called. A number I hadn't saved, but never blocked. She asked if Megan was staying with me. I said she wasn't. Then her mother paused. She's not talking to us either. We thought maybe. I ended the call politely. Let them wonder. She wanted space. I was just helping her feel it. Day 6. A Saturday. I spent the morning at the farmer's market. A place we used to go together, hand in hand, pretending we still had shared interests. But this time I went alone. Walked slower. Talked to strangers. Bought food I liked. Not our food. Mine. When I got home, her car was in the driveway. She was sitting on the steps. No umbrella. No coat. Just her hoodie again, damp with drizzle. Eyes swollen. She looked up when I approached. She didn't speak immediately. Then quietly. I feel like I made a mistake. I didn't ask which one. She stood up slowly, like she was waiting for a sign to collapse into. But I didn't offer it. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and left it open behind me. Not as an invitation, but as a boundary. She stepped in. Not like someone returning home. Like someone hoping they hadn't been locked out forever. She looked around. Everything was cleaner. Sharper. More masculine. She noticed the missing frames, the furniture shift, the scent of cologne she hadn't smelled in years. Then came the words that told me everything. This doesn't feel like my house. Exactly. It wasn't. She asked if we could talk. I said I had somewhere to be. I grabbed my jacket and walked out. Left her standing in the kitchen, surrounded by unfamiliar order. She had wanted a cleanse. But a cleanse strips away the unnecessary. And sometimes, that includes you. That night, she stayed. Not because I asked. Because she didn't know where else to go. I came back late. Took my time. Got dinner alone. Cleared my head. When I walked through the door, she was curled up on the couch, blanket over her knees, the TV on, but muted. Just light and moving images to fill the silence she was no longer comfortable sitting in. She looked up like she expected a conversation. I gave her none. I walked to the bedroom. Closed the door. Alone. She slept on the couch. Morning came with the kind of awkwardness that doesn't need words. She moved quietly in the kitchen, trying to act casual, like nothing had cracked. Like she could rewind the film if she just played it slowly enough. But the scene had already changed. She asked if I wanted coffee. I said I had already made mine. She asked what my plans were. I said I didn't share those anymore. She smiled tightly. Said, I just meant. I walked away mid-sentence. Because we were done with meanings. Now it was only actions. Around noon, I left again. No explanation. When I came back, her suitcase was in the hallway. Not packed. Just sitting there. Like she didn't know whether she should unpack or accept the fact that her stay was temporary. She was in the bedroom, my bedroom, looking at herself in the mirror. Same mirror where she used to put on makeup like armor. But she didn't look like herself now. She looked like someone standing in the ruins of their own script. I watched from the doorway. Quiet. Detached. Then turned and left the room. Later, she asked if we could have a real conversation. I said we'd already had it. She just hadn't listened the first time when I said nothing. She went silent again. By evening, she had cooked dinner. Set the table like she used to. 2 plates. Candles. Even folded napkins. Like a ritual might restore connection. I sat. Ate quietly. No compliments. No critiques. Just silence that made the candles flicker harder. She said she missed this. I said, this isn't what you missed. This is just what you didn't expect to lose. She looked down. She knew. That night, she cried. In the bathroom. Door closed. Soft, controlled sobs like she didn't want to give me the satisfaction of hearing them. But I heard every one. And I didn't move. Because this wasn't cruelty. This was consequence. She wasn't being punished. She was experiencing the gravity of a decision she thought she could undo. The break she wanted had opened a door. But I was already walking through it. And I wasn't holding it open for anyone. By day 7, the air had changed. She was quieter now, like she'd started hearing herself in the silence I let grow around us. But more than that, she started noticing who wasn't calling. Allie hadn't reached out again. Her phone buzzed less. No group chats lighting up, no weekend plans forming like they used to. Even her sister, the one who always had her back, had gone quiet. Because when you take space, people assume you know what you're doing. And when that space starts to look like abandonment, they stop defending you. That morning, she tried again. Made breakfast. French toast, my favorite. Set the plate down in front of me like a peace offering wrapped in sugar. I ate without looking at her. She asked how I was feeling. I said I felt focused. That landed like a punch. She smiled anyway. That rehearsed, brittle smile she used to get out of awkward dinners and fake apologies. It didn't land. Around noon, I stepped outside for a call. Not work. Not family. Just a conversation with someone new. Someone curious. Someone who asked questions like they didn't already assume the answers. When I came back inside, she was on the phone. Low voice. Tense. She was pacing, kitchen to living room, hand pressed to her forehead like she was trying to hold something in place that kept slipping. Don't make this harder, she whispered to whoever was on the other end. Then silence. She saw me watching. Her face drained of color. She hung up. Didn't offer an explanation. Just mumbled something about needing air and stepped outside. I didn't follow. Instead, I opened my laptop and finalized the financial transfers I'd been planning all week. Clean separation. No shared accounts. No joint access. My name, my lines, my future. She came back hours later. Eyes red. Makeup wiped clean like she'd given up on performance. She said she talked to her sister. That her sister told her, "You don't look like someone who took space. You look like someone who lost their place." I didn't respond. Because nothing I said would hit harder than that. Later that night, she sat across from me and asked if we could start over. I said we were already past that point. I told her, calmly, that sometimes a break doesn't reset the story. Sometimes it ends the chapter. She nodded slowly, then excused herself and went to bed. Alone. And I stayed at the table, writing out my exit. In silence. Because the most dangerous man is not the one who yells. It's the one who says nothing and leaves nothing undone. By day 8, the pretending stopped. She moved slower through the house now, like every room had become unfamiliar terrain. She stopped wearing makeup, stopped asking questions. She didn't try to fill the silence anymore. She just existed inside it, like someone waiting for a verdict they already knew. I kept my routine sharp. Wake at 6. Gym. Coffee. Work. Meals. Everything structured. Controlled. Her chaos had no place to attach itself. That day, I caught her staring at the framed print in the hallway, the one that used to hang over our bed. It read, "Love grows where attention flows." She used to quote it back when we still had Sunday rituals and inside jokes. Now it felt like graffiti left on a wall of a building long abandoned. She looked at me and asked, "When did you stop loving me?" I answered without hesitation. "The moment you asked for space instead of answers." She didn't cry this time. That would have been too easy. She just nodded and sat down on the edge of the couch like her legs finally gave up trying to stand in a life that no longer supported her. Later, I caught her in my office, my space. She was holding a photo I hadn't packed away yet. An old one, from better years. Us smiling, arms tangled, eyes still full of something close to honesty. She placed it face down on the shelf and walked out. She knew it was over, but endings never hit all at once. They dissolve in pieces. Around dinner, she offered to cook again. I said I'd already eaten. She didn't ask when, just nodded and poured herself a glass of water with hands that looked like they were shaking from more than thirst. The house felt cleaner now, sharper. Even the lighting had changed, less warm, more real. She wasn't used to that. Her world was built on warmth that didn't last and light that wasn't hers. I was working in the bedroom when I heard her on the phone again. "Yeah," she whispered. "I think it's done." The pause was long. Then she added, "He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just vanished right in front of me." That was the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. She was still under the same roof, still sleeping in the same building, but I was already gone. No arguments. No slammed doors. Just the quiet shifting of energy, like a house rebalancing after an earthquake. She stayed in the guest room that night. Didn't even try the bed we used to share. And I didn't check on her. Because men like me don't slam doors. We just walk through them and never look back. Day 9 started with sunlight, but the kind that exposes, not warms. She was already awake when I stepped into the kitchen. Standing by the window, holding a cup of coffee she didn't drink. She looked thinner, smaller, like life had shrunk her in the last week. She didn't say good morning, didn't ask where I'd slept. She knew the answers wouldn't be for her anymore. I took my coffee to the balcony, sat in silence, watched the city move without asking me to explain myself. And in that stillness, I realized something deeper than anger. I no longer needed closure. I didn't need her to say she was wrong, or that she missed me, or that space was a mistake. The fact that she was still here, but no longer with me, said everything. Around noon, she got a call, loud enough for me to hear her side of it. She said things like, "I don't know who he is anymore, and it's like I'm invisible." Then the real line came. "I thought he'd fight for me." That's where we were different. She thought love was about battles. I thought love was about presence. And once mine was gone, no war could bring it back. She left that afternoon. Said she needed to get some air. I nodded. By the time she returned, half her things were packed. I didn't help. She moved quietly, boxing pieces of herself she once spread across every corner of my life. The framed quote. Her robe. Her books that never made it past chapter 2. At one point, she paused in the hallway, looked at me like she wanted to say something final. But no words came. Just that hollow stare people where when they realize they've lost something they never thought would leave. She spent the night again. Not out of desire, but delay. And I let her. Because even shadows take time to detach. The next morning, I made breakfast, for one. Sat in silence. Ate slowly. Focused on every bite. She emerged in sweatpants, hair tied back, face bare. She looked around the room like she was trying to memorize it. The version of it that no longer included her. Then she asked, "Is this really it?" I finished my coffee. Stood. Looked her straight in the eyes. And said nothing. Because if you need to ask that question, you already know the answer. She left that afternoon. No hugs, no promises, no second chances, just a door clicking shut behind her. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. And freedom doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence you no longer need to escape from. The house felt different now. Not just empty, balanced. No traces of her perfume clinging to door frames. No half-used lotions on the sink. No lingering presence trying to hold on by habit. She was gone. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was on standby. I took the day to reset everything. Changed the Wi-Fi password. Switched out the locks. Not out of spite, but finality. This wasn't her home anymore. It was mine. By afternoon, I was organizing files in the office when her name popped up on my phone. Not a call. A message. Just 5 words. Can we talk one last time? I stared at it. Not because I didn't know the answer. Because I didn't need the conversation. Still, I agreed. Not to rekindle. To confirm. We met in a neutral space. Public, quiet. I picked the cafe we used to avoid because it had no Wi-Fi. Funny how fitting that felt now. No signal. Just silence. She arrived 15 minutes late, looking like someone rehearsed but unraveling. Clean hair, pressed shirt, but eyes that betrayed sleepless nights. She sat across from me like it was a business meeting. Said she didn't expect us to fix anything. Just wanted clarity. I said, you had clarity the moment I went silent. She shifted in her seat. Said she didn't understand how I let go so fast. I corrected her. I didn't let go fast. I let go quietly. That's when her expression changed. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Fear of how many moments she'd missed thinking I was still holding on. She said she thought I'd always be the one to reach out first. To fold. To explain. To rescue. But the man she knew had been replaced by someone she never met. Someone who didn't argue, didn't chase, didn't flinch. I let her talk. And I watched as she unraveled her own guilt in real time. One thread at a time. She tried to soften it with nostalgia. Brought up old memories. Laughed once, but alone. I didn't return it. Not because I hated her. Because I no longer shared the past with her. At the end of it, she asked if I was seeing someone. I said, I'm seeing myself again. She didn't respond. Just nodded. And that nod said more than any apology could. She got up. Didn't hug me. Didn't linger. She walked away like someone who finally knew the weight of absence. And I stayed behind, not to watch her leave, but to honor that I never needed her to return. A week passed. No calls. No texts. No what if messages at midnight. Silence. But not empty. Complete. I changed the living room layout. Not because I had to, because I could. The couch faced a new direction. The art was different. There was no her side anymore. Just space designed for someone who no longer shared it. I went back to the old trail I used to run. The one I avoided because she hated the hills. Turns out I still liked the burn. I just stopped giving myself permission to feel it. Funny how we give up little things to make room for people who only take. And when they're gone, we realize how much of ourselves we abandoned just to keep them comfortable. One afternoon, I bumped into her friend, Jessica, the one who used to give me those polite but pitiful smiles. This time, she looked surprised. You look different. I told her I was just back to myself. She nodded, like that answered a lot more than the words said. Later that evening, I opened the last drawer she used to claim. Found a single earring. Gold hoop. Nothing special, but loud in its loneliness. I held it for a moment. Then I dropped it in the trash. Because not everything needs to be returned. Not every piece left behind deserves a second home. I stood by the window, the city alive below me. And for the first time, I felt no pull to go back, fix, or reflect. Not because it didn't matter, but because it had already taught me everything it needed to. People don't always leave with a door slam. Sometimes, they walk out through your silence. Sometimes, you're the one who leaves, without ever moving. I didn't vanish. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. She's probably still telling herself it was temporary. That maybe I'll circle back. But men like me don't loop. We evolve. We expand. We learn how to exist without begging for presence, or clarity, or closure. The story didn't end with rage. It ended with peace. Not the peaceful kind you share with someone on a porch in your old age, but the kind that grows in the absence of chaos. The kind you build alone. And protect. Not out of fear, but out of memory. Because once you felt the weight of being an option, you never again volunteer to be someone's maybe. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.